Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for joining this session. My name is Isabel. I am an event planner for the Reactor, joining you live from Sydney, Australia. Before we begin, we have a quick housekeeping. Take a moment to read our code of conduct. We are committed to fostering a welcoming, inclusive, and supportive environment for both our audience and presenters. While we absolutely encourage engagement in the chat, please let's keep our comments respectful and constructive throughout the session. Drop your questions in the chat. We'll be keeping an eye out for questions throughout the session for the presenters and answering live. Our session is being recorded and will be available to view on demand within 24 to 48 hours right here on the Reactor YouTube channel. I am delighted to introduce Rory. Rory is an independent Microsoft identity architect and a Microsoft security MVP. He covers mainly Entra ID, Entra External ID, Azure, AD B2C, and Verified ID. Without further ado, let's give a warm virtual round of applause to our incredible guest. Take it away, Rory.
Thanks, Isabel. Good evening. It's 8 p.m. here in Auckland, in New Zealand. It's still light because we still got summertime. So, as Isabel said, I'm a Microsoft MVP in the security space, which is a huge space. I handle a lot of IAM, which is identity and access management. And I always kind of feel that identity and security are not quite the same thing. I live in the north of Auckland. This is my beach, my local beach, which is about 5 minutes walk from here. This is Long Bay. It's actually a DOC, Department of Conservation Park, and that beach is about 1 kilometer long. I often walk up on the cliffs down the bottom where I took this picture. I was actually there this morning. Beautiful day in Auckland. So if we look at the users in Entra, if we have a company like company.co.nz, which is not a real company, we have the people that work for that company, and they are inside the domain. They have an email address at company.co.nz. They have access to Office 365, to SharePoint, to Teams, and all those good things. And they live inside Entra ID. And then, for example, they have auditors. So the auditors would be people at Deloitte, so deloitte.co.nz. We don't want them inside of the actual company portal. So we add them as guest users. So a guest user is, you basically send them an invite, they log on with their Deloitte account, and you can control what financial documents they can see. So those are what we call B2B users, business to business guest accounts. And then we also have, for example, if company.co.nz has got an e-commerce platform, there are all those people that have got nothing to do with company.co.nz. They might have social accounts, they might have any logon on the planet. And those people, we don't want them phoning the help desk. So it's very much self-governance. So they can register themselves, they can change their passwords, they can reset their passwords. Normally they can edit their profile, but that's not available right now in Entra External ID. So what we've got is we've got the people in Entra that have got B2B accounts. We have the people in External ID, and they can be B2B and B2C, which is business to customer, which is a little bit confusing, but according to the documentation, B2B is regarded as in the external ID space. Now, whenever I give these sessions on external ID, I get 1 million people who want to know, what about Azure AD B2C? Because that's the current product, and Entra External ID is kind of taking over. So this presentation is on Entra External ID, but I am going to leave time at the end if you have any questions about B2C and what you should be doing and how it flows into External ID. You can ask those questions at the end. Okay, so why Entra External ID? Back in the day when they started with Azure AD B2C, they had a huge amount of customers. For example, Real Madrid, the football club, apparently had 400 million users. Now, there was no way that Entra ID at that time could handle that many users. So they built a completely different kind of database structure that could handle that, but that meant that it was outside of Entra. And every time there was a really whizzy Entra feature, that had to be ported to B2C. So you can see That's not a long-term solution. It's a lot of duplication. It's a lot of extra cost. So when I started looking at this new product, they built it inside of Entra. So it automatically inherits all of the Entra goodness. For example, B2C did not handle groups very well. You had to call an graph API into Entra. You had to get the groups and then kind of do some fancy stuff. Groups are a first-class citizen in Entra External ID because it's built inside Entra. And new features are continually being added. At the moment, they're just starting off. They're trying to get a really solid, really well accepted product, and every month they're adding new stuff. And there's a slide that we'll get to, which has got all the supported features. So I'm going to show you my demo tenant, and after this session, I'm going to remove a whole lot of stuff. So you might see client IDs and things, but they're not going to be there for very long. So some of the stuff I've got slides because I don't want to reveal some personal information. Just to point out that whereas Entra is portal.azure.com, if you want to go to Entra, it's entra.microsoft.com. So there is a new URL that gets you into the external ID. So when you go into Entra, at the top, you'll see overview, you see manage tenants, you click manage tenants, you say, okay, I want to create my Entra external tenant. And now you choose a configuration. So workforce is those internal employees that we spoke about, the B2B people like the auditors, and the external is your CIAM users, customer IAM, basically the people that access your e-commerce site. So obviously you want external, and then you create your tenant, same sort of stuff as you've done many times probably. The name, the domain, where you want it to be. It's not available in every location. I just use the United States because that just happens to be always there. And it takes about 5 minutes. Spins up your tenant, and now you have a tenant that you can start adding stuff to and adding users to, as you do for all the other things. Okay, so let's go and look at the so this is my external tenant. And if we go to the top overview, you'll see down here, try the get started guide. So let's go and start the guide. So what this does, it kind of shows you how to set up something without you having to know anything. So we start the guide, and right. So at the moment, external ID supports email and password, or email and OTP one-time password. Other stuff on the road, but that's what it supports right now. So we can customize the look and feel. We can add logos. We can select your background color. You can see that's the kind of what the user's going to see. You can see, do you want it center aligned or right aligned? You continue. What it's going to do now is it's going to create an app registration for you. It's going to create a user flow for you. It's going to link the application and the user flow. It's going to set up your client IDs, your client secrets. All of that is being done for you, so you don't have to worry about it. Now, I'm not going to run it now. I'm going to click continue. And now it'll say, okay, what kind of app do you want? Do you want single page, web, desktop, mobile app with native authentication? And we'll say, oh, I don't know, I think I quite like web applications. And then it says, well, what language would you like your web application? Is it Node, ASP.NET Core, Java, or Python? Well, I like ASP.NET Core. What it does now is it generates a GitHub sample, and the GitHub sample is pre-configured with the client ID and everything of the application registration that you have just created. So you can literally just run it out the box. So I'm not going to download it and everything up. You can see it. It's going to go to localhost 7274. So we continue. Congratulations, you've successfully set it up. Now what I've done is I have set this up in Visual Studio. And if you just wait a minute. So here is my demo, which is the authority was created for me. I didn't have to type anything in. The client ID is the client ID of the app registration, right? So literally I download it. I can do .NET Run if I'm using the command line. I'm in Visual Studio, so I hit F5, and it will now run the application. Let's just wait for it to start up. And it goes to localhost 7274. I don't want to use this because it'll probably say I've already logged on. So I'm going to go to here, and I'm going to, if I can just get my new incognito window, and I'm going to HTTPS localhost 7274. Is that right? Localhost 7274. Yep. Now I've branded this with, this is the Reactor logo that I got from the Reactor site. So it's, you can have your logo here, you can have your background here. I just happen to have made them the same, but they don't have to be. So down here you can see, if you don't have an account in External ID, you can self-register and create one. So I just enter a user, demo user. Sorry, I have to steer quite different. Company.co.nz. Demo user at company. Go next. I enter my password. Sign in. I don't want to be signed in. And now what it's done is it basically has worked, and it sent the JOT token back. So you can see this is all the details. So we passed your application. You've now got a working sample that authenticates with Entra ID. You can now go and add all your business code. You can see hello demo user, and you're in. And you didn't have to do anything. Okay. All you had to do was just follow the startup guide. So let's go back to the slides. So users, again, I've just got a screenshot here because there's some personal stuff. So inside of the user, there are 3 ways to create a user. You can create a new internal user. So that is someone at company.co.nz. You can invite a user, that's your B2B. They get an email, they log in, or you can create a user in the tenant, which is how I created the demo user, and you can set that up for whatever you want. So you create the user, set up the password, you're in the database, and you can now continue. So let's look now at applications, and over here, so I go down here, applications, app registrations, and you can see all these quick start applications. Oh, sorry. All these quick start applications are the ones that I've been creating because I've obviously been going through this a few times. So we got quick start application. So this has all been set up for you when we did that startup guide. We can see the redirect URIs. So it has set up one for web with these redirect URLs, and it's set one up for SPA with these URLs. We can go and look at API permissions. It has already set up offline access and OpenID for you, and it's already granted admin consent for you, so you don't have to worry about that. And basically, all that stuff is done for you. So pretty neat stuff just to get you going. All right, so user flow, self up, sign up, sign in. I'll show you the self-service password reset if you just bear with me. So if we go and look down here, external identities, user flows. So we will just look at just all these user flows. A lot of them have been created, so they've got all these weird names. So we can look at a user flow. We can see that it has identity providers, which we chose email and password. I'll show you linking it up. You can set up user attributes. They've just set up email. These are attributes that are collected at sign up. You can do a page layout. You can set up your languages. But down here, the way that Entra External ID works is that you can link an application to a user flow. So I have linked, or it has linked that weird quick start to this. In B2C, you had to add a request to the, you had to add a parameter to the request, which was and P equals the policy name. You don't have to do that anymore in Entra External ID because the two are linked. So a user flow can have many applications because all your user applications can use the same flow, or they can use different user flows. But an application can only have one user flow because obviously, how does the application know which user flow to use? So that is the user flow. All right, branding. Down here, you can do a whole lot of branding under user experiences, company branding. So you can, let's just edit it. So in your branding, you can set up your backgrounds, your background image, your page color. You can set up your layout, full screen, partial screen, show header, etc., etc. You can have custom CSS, so you can basically, instead of just having an image, you can have some really whizzy branding. You can have a header, and you can define that header. You can have a footer with stuff about privacy and stuff about terms of use. In your sign-in form, the banner, user host name, you can have a hint, your sign-in text, set up your self-service password reset. You can add text to the page, and so on. So the branding is quite a lot more extensive than it was in B2C. So we can go back now and go back to here. Now, I need to show you one other thing. Just bear with me. So that is, no, not that one. This one. So if I go to user flows and I choose that one, non-MFA user flow, and I look at page layouts, you can see here, these are the attributes that are connected to the user flows that it basically collects. You can have a text box, or as you can see here, it can be checkbox multi-select, radio single select, or just a normal one. And you can see in my checkbox multi-select, you can actually put markdown into the text, which you couldn't do in B2C. So that is really cool. That's a pretty powerful feature. And now if I go back to here, you can see down the bottom here, we've got a multi checkbox, but we've got hyperlinks here. So I've got a spelling mistake there, but that's fine. So that also enables you to do a whole lot of stuff, which is pretty cool. So that's the sign up. External identity providers. So if we go and look over here, and we have all identity providers. Now, so Microsoft Entra ID is basically there almost by default, kind of a guest account. Your email one-time password, which is one of the options, your Microsoft account. These are all pre-configured. You can add social accounts, Google, Facebook, Apple. You just configure them and put your keys and URLs and everything in. Apple is actually quite new. And down here, you have custom. And if you add new, you'll see you can do a custom for OpenID Connect or a custom for SAML. All right, so these are now external IDPs that you can use to authenticate with instead of B2C. And I have added Kinder. So Kinder is another IDP. It's a really nice product. It actually comes out of Australia. That's where their head office is. And I have quite a lot of discussions with them. And I helped them with a few things, and they actually sent me a t-shirt, which is very cool. And you can basically edit it, and it's the standard stuff. So you're looking at display name, your well-known endpoint, your issuer, your client ID, and your client authentication, and your client secret. So pretty standard stuff in terms of identity. You set it up like that. So you've got all those attributes. And just hang on. If I go back here. Okay, sorry, let me just go and give you a demo of that. So, come on. So many different. So if I go back to user flows and I go to non-MFA. Now, at the top here, you'll see run user flow. So this is a kind of a test harness. You can run the user flow from inside the portal without having to attach it to an application. So we started off by having an application that sent an OpenID Connect request to the portal. You can actually do it inside the application, which is really, really useful for me because I don't really need applications. So I can just copy that from the clipboard and I can go to here and just bear with me. Oh, where's my cursor gone now? Here it is. New incognito window. So we're going to see that same login screen that we saw, but down here you can see sign in with Kinder. So we click that. Now it takes us to Kinder. So you can see it's got kinder.com here. Type in my email. Sorry. So aubreyb@gmail.com. All right, now it's sent a code to my email address. Just bear with me. And it is 956613. 956613. Continue. So now it's taken us back to Entra External ID and it's authenticated because, like I say, there isn't an application. And you can see down here that the IDP that we came from is actually Kinder. So that's basically how you can add all kinds of other identity providers, anything OpenID Connect and anything SAML. And I've done that for quite a few customers, which is a really powerful feature. All right, back to here, authentication methods. So if we go back to the portal, down here under protections, you know, this is the advantage of Entra External ID being inside Entra, because now we're getting all this stuff about identity protection, conditional access, security center, security score, multi-factor out of the box. All right, and so these are all the authentication methods that Entra supports. Entra External ID does not support all of them at the moment, but they are working on Microsoft Authenticator. They are working on QR codes. At the moment, as you can see, I've got OTP configured and I've got SMS configured, but all these are, no, these things are all kind of in the pipeline, on the roadmap, as Microsoft loves to say. Okay, right, let's look at conditional access. So conditional access is a really powerful feature, and you can use it for, so here is conditional access. So what we do is we create a conditional access policy. So that's what I called it. All right, and in my policy, I'm saying I want specific users, and I've decided that it's called demo MFA user. I have decided to target a resource. So that resource is my MFA application. And I've decided to add a control, and that control says require multi-factor authentication. So if we go back to the user flows, I'll just check you on the time, looking good. And here we're going to run the MFA user flow. Okay, so run user flow, you know the drill. And down here, you're going to take that URL. We are going to go back to, which one is it? No, sorry. that one. I'm going to go here, new incognito window. I'm going to run the user flow. All right, so now I'm signing with a different user, the one I configured, demo MFA user at company.co.nz. Have I got that right? Demo MFA. Oh, no, I haven't. At company.co.nz. Okay. Down and enter the password. Here is your forgot password, your self-service password reset if you want to change it. Password 1 hash. We'll go and remove that afterwards, so don't worry. We'll send the text code. And I've got a text now, and it is 045352. 045352. And verify. So that is our MFA. So you can see the demo user didn't have MFA. The demo MFA user had MFA. So all good. Very easy to set up, as you can see. Sorry. Custom authentication extensions. So if I can go back here, custom authentication extensions. So these are hooks into events. So Microsoft have created a few events. They are adding a whole lot more here, but these are the ones at the moment. So an event is, for example, a custom claims to fetch attributes from external sources. So this is when you start issuing the token. So what you can do here is an API to call out to a database to get more claims, augment the token. You can ask the user to enter an employee ID, and you can go and check if that employee ID is a valid one. So you can do a whole lot of stuff like that. You can do stuff when you're collecting attributes, when you're submitting attributes. This is a new one. You can basically bring your own email provider. So you can use something like SendGrid to brand the emails with the custom company.co.nz stuff. So you don't have to use the Microsoft emails. So email is another way of doing MFA and stuff. When you register a user, when you go to that screen and said, don't have account sign up, it will ask you to validate that email by going to enter the code that it sends to that email. And the email with the code, and you can customize and you can make it do whatever you want. So that's pretty useful. Right, native authentication. So of all the features that I'm showing you tonight, this is by far my favorite. So if we go and look at ADFS, which was one of the very first Microsoft identity products, Entra ID, Azure AD, B2C, all the logins are done in a browser and require a web view. So that means that you can't really brand the login screen. You can't really make one step into three or whatever. And that kind of worked for web. But when we get to mobile, and especially when you're doing native development in mobile, you want a login screen that stays in the flow. You don't want to have to leap out of the flow into a web view to do the authentication and then come back. It's very jarring. It doesn't look nice. And I would be a millionaire and I wouldn't be talking to you now if I had $10 for every time someone had asked me, please, can't we have our own login screen? So Entra External ID now has native authentication, which is beyond awesome. Now, I don't have a mobile application to show you, so I'm going to show you this with Postman because Postman runs APIs. So we have the demo. We can do sign up, sign in. So we can do sign up with password or OTP, sign in with password or OTP, or we can do self-service password reset. There are APIs for all of those things. On top of that, Microsoft have built an SDK So instead of having to know all this stuff, you simply call the SDK and it does it all for you. That SDK is available for iOS and it's available for Android. So you don't need to know all this stuff. You don't need to go and pore over all the documentation, figure out what you've done wrong. It is all there for you. So what it does is each step passes back a continuation token, and you have to provide that token to the next step. So the token changes down the steps. I've just used a Postman variable to copy and paste across so that I don't have to keep doing that. So we go to the demo, start sign up. So we go to the initiate endpoint and we send it, and it will send us back a continuation token. And what do we give to it? The client ID, the challenge, and we give it the username that we want to authenticate with. Now in the challenge, it's going to the challenge endpoint over here, use the continuation token that we've just got, the same client ID, password redirect are our challenge types. We send that, and we get another continuation token. We take that and pass it to the actual token endpoint, which is actually what we want. Client ID, the password, the continuation token, grant type password, and the scopes open ID of an access. And down here, you see we got an access token back, we got a refresh token, and we got an ID token. So you saw that flow in Postman. I'm not trying to fool you. You didn't see a browser. You didn't see a web view. Everything is inside of the API. So what that means is in your mobile native development, you can have a login screen with the logon on one page, the password on the next page, the MFA on the next page. They can all have your own branding. They can all have your own flows. No browser, no web view. I just think that that is magic. And me and many other people have been arguing with Microsoft for this feature. In my case, over 10 years. And finally, it's an Entra external ID. And maybe one day we'll see it in Entra, but it's been very well received. And I know I have customers that have gone to Entra External ID purely because it has this feature, and it is just such a much nicer mobile native user experience. Okay, so if we go back to our demo, right, everyone always wants to know about pricing. So remember we discussed you can do B2B inside of your workforce tenant, which is company.co.nz. In that case, your user type property is set to guest. In external tenants, basically it is applied to every user, regardless of whether it's a local or guest or whatever. Billing is based on the monthly active users, MAUs, the count of unique external users who authenticate within a calendar month. And what it does is it takes all the workforce and external tenants that are linked to one subscription, combines them all, and 50,000 up to 50,000 MAUs a month are free. Okay, that is much cheaper than anything else on the market. In New Zealand, well, we've got 5 million people. We're not a huge big country. Most New Zealand companies don't have 50,000 customers. So the people that I help in New Zealand are essentially getting this for nothing, which is really cool. You are charged for SMS at the moment. SMS is one of the authentication things, but when we start getting to using Authenticator app, that charge will go away, and who knows if there'll be other charges. But it is a very cost-effective solution from that perspective. Okay, now Microsoft have actually built a demo site that does this stuff. And let me just find it, which is over here. So this is Woodgrove Groceries. So Woodgrove Groceries is a grocery shop. You can go buy your eggs, your pumpkin, your sugar, oranges, and it is built. This whole site is built on Entra External ID. Okay. Now down the bottom, you can go and see authentication APIs, and we talked about that. So here's a GitHub project that does claim augmentation. So you go, call an API, get some claims, and add it to the token on top of what you've got out of Entra ID. There's the source code for the whole application if you're interested, down here. And the bit that I really like is over here, you can select a use case. So there are use cases for sign up and sign in with email password, email one-time password, self-service password reset, social, maybe do a login hint and pre-populate the sign-in name, collect attributes, link to terms of use and privacy, pre-populate attributes, validate them, modify them, block the sign-up process if the API says this is not a valid employee ID. You can edit your account and delete your account. At the moment, Entra ID, external ID, does not have profile edit, so this would be done typically by another web app or something. Again, on the roadmap, MFA, conditional access, you can do step-up authentication, where if you spend more than a certain amount of money on this website, you have to do some more authentication to make sure that you are who you say you are. You can do role-based and group-based. You can customize the look and feel. You can have a custom URL domain, so you don't have to use the demo one that you saw on the Visual Studio project. You can do custom email, like I discussed. You can customize the languages. You can customize the look. You can do a whole lot of session stuff, token lifetime, SSO. So really, if you're thinking about it, go and have a look at this demo, and you can see all the good stuff. So you can actually go and run the use case if you're interested, and kind of see exactly what I showed you. And down here, it shows you how they configured that particular thing. So this is conditional access and policies and new policies, which is basically what I showed you. So really go and have a look at this, and you will, you can really get a really good feel for what the product can do. If we now go back to here, okay, of course, we have samples, lots of samples. And if I can just go back to this one, yeah, I just close that down here. Here's the samples. So there's samples for external ID. We have JavaScript, vanilla, Angular, React. We have the web apps, JavaScript, ASP.NET Core. We have web APIs. We have desktop. We have mobile delegated authentication. We have desktop, and we have native, which I showed you, and daemon. So these samples are actually the samples that you saw when we did the quick start. So they were showing you these samples here, and you literally can run up a demo site, which is free, go and look at the sample, hook it up like I showed you, and give it a whirl. If we go back to here, I have been through the main stuff. Are there any questions? Is anything, Isabel? Are there any questions? Where's Isabel?
We do have some questions, so let me go for the first one. So
Okay.
Matthew Levi is asking, can you do conditional access policies in a EEID and things like risk-based P2 protection?
I'm not sure about. Generally you can do pretty much everything you can do in Entra, but yeah, I've only got a P1 subscription, so I haven't been able to try that. But if you had a P2, it does have risky users and stuff in the protections, so it's a qualified yes.
Great. Thank you, Rory. Second question is, in terms of BYOID, B2C supports practically any identity. I have run into limitations with EEID not supporting some expected IDPs like Apple ID, etc. Are there roadmap items to add common external IDP?
So Apple as a social one has very recently been added, so it should work for Apple. I've tried a wide range of external IDPs like Kinder. I've tried connecting it to B2C. I've tried connecting it to Okta, Auth0, and basically, I don't, in terms of the ones that are there, like the MFA, I mean the Microsoft account, Google, Facebook, and Apple. There are probably others on the roadmap, but that is what's there for now. Unfortunately, Microsoft isn't very good at telling us what's on the roadmap.
Fair enough. Thank you so much, Rory. And to our viewers at home, please drop your questions in the chat. I will allow a couple more minutes in case anyone has any more questions.
So if there's no more questions on Entra External ID, does anyone have any B2C questions in terms of what they should do and so on?
It looks like we are all clear for now at the moment, Rory.
Okay, so I can tell you just quickly, Microsoft obviously wants to get rid of B2C in the long term, and they want people to use, maybe get rid is the wrong word, but they want to phase people off B2C onto Entra External ID. So if you have not got a B2C tenant now, after the 1st of May, you will not be able to create tenants. So if you have got a tenant, if you just got one tenant, you can go and create as many more as you want. But if you don't have any tenants after the 1st of May, that's it. You won't be able to create them. So if you are thinking about creating a B2C tenant, do it before the 1st of May. Microsoft have guaranteed support until at least 2030. So that means that you can raise tickets, that will get security updates, and all that good stuff. Entra External ID does not have custom policies, which is one of the great powers of B2C. I've heard various stories about what's going to happen in Entra in terms of custom policies, but nothing official has been announced. They are going to announce migration plans, migrate your users, migrate your maybe applications, maybe user flows, who knows, but nothing yet. There is one possible way to get around this. If you know anything about custom policies, if you do a sign up in custom or a sign in custom policy, you're calling a B2C API. Now, if you take a custom policy and you change the B2C API to a graph API call, like the native authentication I showed you, and you take the read to do a graph API call, and you take the write to do a graph API, what you can do is use a B2C custom policy, but have your users in Entra External ID. That's not going to work for everything, but I have got people that use it for basic stuff. So then when eventually External ID, and they're happy, all the users are there already. So that is pretty neat. Okay, I just want to show you some other stuff while I'm here. So I have, so all these things that I'm going to show you are in the references, and the deck is already up on the internet, and I'll show you where it is. So you can go and get the deck. I will add the recording when it comes out. So this is my aggregate blog. I've written about, 850 articles. You can subscribe if you want. You can contact me. Or the best part is you can use the search feature. So if I search for sign up, we have an article there. Every time I find a gotcha or a customer phones me with a question, I add it to this article. So there's a lot of stuff there about things that get people stuck. And for example, you can remove the sign up option. So that's the way you do that. I have a separate blog, which is included in the aggregate blog, which is called the new control plane, which has got a lot of articles. And all my presentations are up here on GitHub Pages. And this is the presentation that you are currently listening to. And so if I go back here and click that, these are just the references. Sorry, I've clicked the wrong thing. Oh my God. All right, so there is my email if you want to ping me, and there is the link so you can take a screenshot or something, and the slides and everything will be up. They're up there already, actually. I'm going to add the recording. So thank you very much for attending. I hope that you found that useful and interesting, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you, Rory. That was a great presentation. And thank you to our viewers at home. Like I mentioned at the beginning, if anyone happened to miss anything, any part of the session, this recording will be available on the Reactor YouTube channel in 24 to 48 hours. And you can watch on demand at your own time. Thank you, Rory. And like Rory said, I hope everyone else has a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you and good night.